Hello, friends. Welcome to Four Friends in a Book, where we gather around each week and talk about the books that we've read and how they've potentially changed our views on the genres, the characters, and the stories that we've been reading.
Welcome, friends. It is time for Four Friends and a Book. We've had a week off. We had some family things to attend to. We almost had today off. We had some health issues. However, we managed to exploit technology to our advantage, and here we are, Four Friends and a Book. I am your occasionally humble producer who mashes the buttons, makes the magic happen, Joe Mays. I am a friend. And joining us, as always, are our besties. Teresa, if you'd like to introduce yourself and pass the talking stick whenever you're ready.
Well, you said that you're a friend, so does that mean I'm a book?
Ha!
Or
You could be one of the remaining four friends or a book. Your choice.
I'll be a friend. David, stop looking at me like that.
Your podcast, your choice.
I'll be a friend. And I'm going to pass it to my friend, Diane.
Hi, and I'm a friend as well. And I shall pass it on to my friend, David.
Hi, I'm a doctor.
Oh my goodness.
Dr. David.
And a
And
friend.
insufferable.
Diane's a
Oh,
teacher,
wow.
David's
And
a
I have the
teacher,
talking pen.
Teresa's a
Talking
teacher,
pen.
and I know a lot of teachers.
And I guess this week is me.
Yeah.
It is. You are
And
kicking
so-
things off.
I'm going to give a disclaimer to start with, and I kind of give you guys the heads up before. Like, this week we're going to talk about politics, and we're going to talk about books and politics and how the two, while seemingly separate, are deeply intertwined. And a little bit of a triggering warning, right? When we started choosing up book topics, I was being flippant, of course, when I said, I want to talk about a book about politics or read a book about politics. And so,
If I may, for those who don't know,
Sure.
David is a professor of government/political science. So the fact that he would choose books about politics is not a big surprise. What is a bit of a surprise is the fact that he's clearly an amateur magician and has the ability to make his mug disappear. It's quite magical. You should watch closely during the course of the podcast.
And I'm going to
And-
make it disappear permanently.
Especially when Teresa's talking. When Teresa's talking, the mug will be appearing and disappearing.
And I'm going to tell our daughter, and then she will fuss at her mom. And so,
Kate gave her that. Gave him that.
Wow.
Pardon me.
to my triggering warning, the book I'm going to talk about today comes from Adam Schiff, now senator from California, who was in the House at the time this book was written. And it talks about, the title of the book is Midnight in Washington, how we almost lost our democracy and still could. And it's from 2021. And why this book is poignant and important to me is, number one, I got this book originally, when I was experiencing some health issues, or right before I experienced some health issues. For those of you who do know, I went into cardiac arrest on the day of the invasion of Russia into the Ukraine. I thought it was a panic attack, and my entire reading habit changed. I went from reading books like Midnight in Washington and other like sci-fi or assassin type books to now I read cozy mysteries, which is a complete shift in my life, although it brings me great joy. But given what I've seen in the last year, I think this book is especially poignant and timely, even though it's almost 5 years old now. And especially in the last 2 weeks, 20 days, with the murder of Renee Good in Minnesota, with the potential news that 1,500 active duty military are being prepared from Alaska to go into Minnesota, Minneapolis specifically, with the idea that we are now being told that as Americans, if we dispute ICE or impose something on ICE or the Department of Justice, we could have our citizenship canceled, whether it's naturalized or birthright. And so I think understanding the message that Adam Schiff is going to deliver in his book, and being aware and cognizant of what is happening is an indelible freedom and identifier to our democracy. And I think now more than ever, especially as we gear up for the midterms, and the primaries are coming up in a few weeks. The early voting starts here in Texas in just a few days. And so being cognizant of what's happening to us politically, policy wise, and I haven't even mentioned Greenland, the fact that we are getting ready to blow up NATO, not physically, but the idea that we are going to invade a sovereign nation or territory of a sovereign nation, a NATO ally, that we have sworn allegiance to, not fealty, not anything else other than allegiance. And according to reports that came out today, which is January 19th, that Donald Trump said he is going to take Greenland by hook or by crook because he didn't get awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And, I'm also going to put a language disclaimer on here. Get the fuck over it, man, because
and
these are our people.
Norway had to explain that the Nobel Peace Prize is not awarded by the government of Norway.
Right.
It's a separate private entity. But yeah, Dear Jonas, the Dear Jonas letter is just astounding. If you haven't read it yet, go look up Dear Jonas, Trump, Greenland. It is, and it's, drawing the line in this day and age between politics and books is hard. Sorry, David.
No. I think it shouldn't just be me harping on this, and I apologize. As I'm often told, we don't talk politics. And so this is this is my time.
Your time to shine.
My time to shine.
That's it. That's what you do for a living. I mean, you're a dependable source. You are. I mean, it's not just for the podcast. This is something that is part of your professional life, part of within your sort of your portfolio of work that you've done, is you've been a consultant for the media on interpreting some of these things. So this is, when David's ranting about politics, it's not just, old man shaking his fists as a cloud like it is when I'm doing it. This is somebody who's literally got a doctorate in this particular field. So I appreciate your perspective, David.
And I will say that when the world gets really big for me, with all of this, because it's big and it's scary and it's frustrating, and I will ask David, distill it down for me. And he is incredibly impartial when he shares his views, because he believes in informing, and I really respect that.
Thanks.
So given all of that, the Midnight in Washington, how does this sort of reflect? You said it was sort of brought that into the present. What is that?
Here's what we've forgotten, and I tried very hard, and I want to point out, I'm not saying that Adam Schiff is the sage on the stage by any stretch of the imagination. There are he's taken some liberties in some places, and that's understood, but it talks about how we as a country and we as a society are failing ourselves, because we're refusing to talk to each other. We're talking at each other or across each other. And, I receive text messages, emails, updates daily, sometimes hourly, from political candidates and parties. And it's often to the detriment of how we think about each other. The language that we're using regarding our politicians and our parties and policies we don't agree with, we are demonizing people that we used to break bread with and should still break bread with. And so the fact that on, Dr. King's day, right, we're having this conversation, I think it's especially important, to think about. He didn't want it by any means possible. He was not Malcolm X. And I'm not saying that Malcolm X's approach was bad. It just wasn't the right approach.
Right.
Because
it wasn't ineffective, which it wasn't as effective as he would have liked, which is why he adjusted his approach closer to his death.
Right. And I think that should be remembered. Dr. King was always about, I'm not saying he was a perfect man either, so don't misunderstand me. It's about gathering the masses to understand where each side is coming from.
Mhm.
And last week I had a conversation with a student after class, and they asked me, do they really have to talk to somebody of a different opinion or somebody that is out to do them harm? And I said, you do. And I said, not because you're expected to listen to them or agree with them, but because you need to know where they're at. Because at some point, they're no longer going to be in the dark or out of power, and you need to know what's coming. And by failing to talk to our fellow people, constituents, Americans, immigrants, whatever, by failing to talk to people, we are embracing the first step in Adam Schiff's identifier is that the erosion of norms is taking place.
Mhm.
Because above all, we have always been a nation that communicates. We may not agree. I mean, we fought wars over it in our own country, but at the end of the day, we still came together to talk and to say, this is why we're at war. This is what's going on. This is what's happening. And we are failing to do that. A lot of it's because we're hiding behind digital screens, and a lot of it is because we're refusing to listen to other points of view. But the idea that we are taking what is a sound document or a belief in an idea and corrupting it or co-opting it into our own personal platform or standpoint is what's really damning to our society. The only reason democracy works in this country is because there are so many different beliefs, identities, and values that exist that no one can rise to the majority without the ability to cooperate with each other.
Yeah, back to your point about books being sort of that the relationship between books and politics. I always like to say the first is the first for a reason, and the ability for someone like Adam Schiff, he's the senator from California, correct?
Now he is, yes.
Yeah. The ability of him to speak openly and speak out, write a book, distribute it to the masses is really fundamental, not just as a literary issue, but as a political issue. That is really at the heart of what books represent to
Yeah.
me is that written freedom of expression.
And
So,
I think it's important to realize that uh, just like Adam Schiff's work, your bookstore is in that same vein, because if you walk into Patchouli Joe's on the square of Denton, Texas, right off the square of Denton, Texas, right? Patchouli Joe's Books and Indulgences, and indulge your mind and expand your
Expand your
sense. And
mind.
what's that?
Expand
Expand
your
your mind.
mind.
Indulge your senses. That's what it is. I'm terrible at this game. I apologize. I want to do it justice. Um, as you walk into the bookstore, which is amazing, by the way, and it always feels like home,
Mhm.
there's a safe, an old-fashioned safe on one side of the store, and it's where you house all the banned books. And the idea that we in America and under the First Amendment would ban a book is absolutely abhorrent to me, right? But the fact that you've made it, I don't want to call it a game, but the fact that you've made it into like um, a piece of art that is just as protected under the Constitution is so vastly important, because all the different books in there that I've seen coming in and out of the store are a powerful message that no matter how hard people try, wisdom and creativity and insightfulness will always find a way to be found.
one of the things about that and banning books is a very hot topic, and which is why we have the vault of banned books. One of the questions we get regularly from people who may be of a different political view than we are is, well, this hasn't really been banned, has it? And we call it the vault of banned books. But when Charlie has and the staff have written up when was the book challenged? Where was it
Mhm.
challenged? Why was it challenged? And have that sort of that description attached to the place where the book is being held, specifically for that reason, so that we can have a discussion, say, okay, were they banned? Did the government roll through? No. But however, they are being challenged by members of the community, in some cases, school districts, whatever the case may be, and we should be able to talk about why. And most of the conversations, even if they come in sort of hot, adversarial, most of the conversations wind up being, well, that doesn't make any sense why that would be pulled out of the, city library or those kinds of things. So it's, yeah, that's part of the reason why Diane and the folks at the who work at the store on a regular basis, hi Steph, um,
Hi, Steph.
is to do that. I mean, and I know you've encountered a lot more of those people, Diane, than I
Right.
have. Yeah.
Early on, we encountered it more than we do now. Now I think people have realized that books are being challenged and pulled out of places. And I think there's some people who think that should happen. Um, I don't think as many come in the store anymore. I think we've got an
Right.
identity of what kind of store what kind of store we are. But,
Mhm.
well, I had customers in the other day, so I was just looking this up, and they were reading the different, things we have written up about the challenged and banned books, and they said the girl looked over and said, "Yeah, I don't think Lord of the Flies, thank God that we did that one in school, and that one hasn't been banned."
Mm,
Well, it hasn't been banned, but it has been challenged
Oh my
and
goodness,
taken
yeah.
out of schools. I didn't argue with her because I hadn't done the research to look,
Mhm.
but yeah, people banning a book doesn't mean that we're throwing it into a fire pit. It
Mhm.
means the access to it is being
restricted.
limited.
Right.
It's being
Which
pulled out of public libraries, being pulled out of school
mhm.
libraries. Um,
Yeah,
that's
if I
what
could
banning means today.
right, and, this just so happens to be the topic of the book that I read, and it's called Ban This Book,
Mm,
Mm,
and I started reading a different book, and it just wasn't speaking to me, and so I picked this up. It's a middle grade book, which is completely out of my norm. Excellent, excellent
who wrote
book.
that book, Teresa?
It is,
yeah, we've
uh,
I think we've met her.
Gratz, Gratz.
Is that who it was?
I don't remember.
Is it initials? What's no.
I don't have,
I got it.
um,
Oh, Joe's
Yeah,
but
looking it up.
no, it's Alan Gratz.
Oh, okay, no, that's not who I thought it
Yeah.
was.
I I was so impressed with the way it was handled. I didn't know where it was gonna go, as far as the resolution, and as a parent, I've always been of the opinion that it's, a conversation between us and the kids,
Right.
about what is appropriate and what isn't. And that comes directly from the way my parents handled it. My mom asked me to not read one book in the entirety of my time at home, and I still haven't read it
Which
because
book?
she, The French Atlantic Affair. The dental hygienist gave me a copy when I was like 12, and my mom's like, I would really prefer, and okay, you
Yeah.
know?
But did she stop other children from
Did
reading it
she
or go
did
to
she
other
walk the
people's? Yeah.
neighborhood and pull copies out of it?
No, probably not.
Shockingly, she didn't.
Yeah.
And the beauty of one of the cool things, one of my favorite parts of this is, and this all ties back to the books about politics,
Mhm,
is that when these conversations come up, they turn into conversations. Like the lady that said, "Yeah, I'm glad Lord of the Flies wasn't banned because we read
mhm,
that in school." Well, except it has been challenged. There are schools where that can't be
mhm,
read, that can't be assigned or even considered by a student to read it. And so the question is always, well, why? Why is that banned? Why? That doesn't make any sense. But being able to have a conversation about it is frankly just having the conversation is one of the
mhm.
protected, privileges or rights that exist in the country. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I, I was gonna say I don't want to jump in anywhere. So I want to go back
I
because
can
there's
mute you if need be, but
yeah, thanks. That'll work.
the good
Um,
news is y'all can mute me too. So
I gotta
so
find that button.
but and I think it's interesting, right? Because I think book banning has become a tool at the disposal of organizations and people in relatively recent times. I'm not saying be all end all, but we are using it more now than I think ever before when it comes to the idea of potentially limiting what we have access to or what people have in society have access to, which again is that erosion of norms, right? Because we don't want to disseminate information or get information out there that contradicts or speaks out to a different portion of a message that we're trying to ensconce as canonical or as foundational in our society, unfortunately, right? To that end, one of the books that's banned or has been banned is Mouse,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
which is
The
the
graphic novel.
Yes, I was going to say the graphic novelization of the Diary of Anne Frank, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Which, by the way, if you haven't purchased that book, I know for sure that they have it at Patchouli Joe's right off the Denton Square. Joe, what is that tagline again?
Expand your mind, indulge your senses.
At Patchouli Joe's.
Yeah, Chili Joe's
At-
Books and Indulgences.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And so I think that's an important caveat. And I'm not going to go through all the sections of Adam Schiff's book, but I want to point out a couple others. In that book, he talks.
Before we dive into that real quick,
Sure.
the what is considered to be the first book ban in the United States, this is according to the Gutman Library at Harvard, the first book ban in the United States was Thomas Morton's New English Canaan that was banned in 1637 in Quincy, Mass, home
Wow.
of Mark Bartolone. Go Mark.
But
That's where my uncle lived.
Quincy?
Really?
But I want to point out, in 1637, we weren't even a country yet. We were still living under the puritanical regimes of the king. And so that makes a lot of sense, right? And under that Puritan society, you kept an eye on your neighbor because if they weren't working hard enough, they were going to be punished by God. And by proxy, you would be punished for not turning them in. So just saying.
And here we are again.
Point being, the book bans and being challenged by the community was happening even long before, 150 or 140 years before we were even a country.
Sadly. But again, that's one book, or it's a one-off here and there versus we're having thousands of challenges a month or a year in Texas alone.
Yeah, I've
Which
never seen it like this.
yeah, and it's a real shame. So Schiff goes through a couple different epochs in his book. So he's got the abuse of power and the erosion of norms, the idea of how we got here, the institutional aspect, and how it applies to us today. He talks about the Russia investigation because Russia, Russia, Russia. I mean, every time I hear that, I want to say Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. But, and then he delves into the two impeachments of Donald Trump. And again, I'm not going to go through those, but I think there's two other pieces in here that are hugely important. And the first is the January 6th invasion of the U.S. Capitol. And to see all of those people pardoned, and I realize we're in Texas, and I realize that there are people from Texas who have been pardoned, is absolutely breathtaking to me, because the whole idea of our democracy is that in our history, we have never had to shed blood at the changing of governmental institutions, beliefs, values, and systems. And we can no longer make that claim. On the day that happened, on the day of the transition, the counting, I was literally watching the TV as this was occurring, and I was getting text messages and phone calls from the media outlets I had served as a political analyst for, and they're like, "What does this mean? What are you thinking? What are you feeling?" And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck to feel. I mean, that's honestly what I responded to one of the reporters and anchors texting and calling me. And I said, this is something none of us have ever seen. I said, this is literally history being made in front of our eyes. And then having to go back into class a few days after that and talk to my students, and they're asking me questions. And I'm like, you know what? It was a blip. It was a situation. And we have institutions in place. We have a president in power. We have, Congress that's taking hold, and there's investigations. It's going to be handled.
So it
And
was
now,
actually somewhat prescient of Adam Schiff, or he just understood what was happening to have written this book at the time he did to say,
Mm.
this was peering down into the abyss. We were at the precipice.
yeah,
This was not a one-off. This is a warning flag.
and it's especially weird because there are interviews with members of Congress who were escaping the chambers, and a freshman member of the House breaking off a hand sanitizer, and someone flippantly said, "Hey, are you worried about the cleanliness of your hands?" He's like, "No, I'm going to use this as a weapon to keep us safe." And I'm paraphrasing here. I don't remember the exact context or the
Yeah.
exact verbiage, but the fact that they were arming themselves with whatever they had in their at their disposal, um, is pretty breathtaking.
And
As
the
And
I
pure fear that they were feeling
yeah.
too.
yeah, and
And
the other thing I want to
as I
point out.
I
Go
think
ahead.
as I think you mentioned the people who participated or who were involved in that, who were on the floor of Congress, we'll just leave it at that, and that were later convicted and pardoned.
Yeah.
One of those members is actually running in the same district I am, other party running in the primary.
A- And so
And
I think something to realize is after the Civil War was over, after the North put the beat down on the Southern states and the Confederate States for insurrection, they passed a law that said you don't get to be elected after you rose up in opposition as a traitor to this nation. You don't get to run for office. And so to watch this take place, 160 some odd years later, and it's like, okay,
now
So
they're
what
running
happened to
for
that
office not
rule?
only in Texas, but in
right,
Florida,
right. Florida, there's some in
unopposed.
Arizona. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing. The guy that he calls himself the MAGA shaman, he's running it for the governor of Arizona, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like I just the idea, and one of the things he says is there's a lot of people in these parties that have accountability amnesia. And so the fact it's like, oh, we're just going to move on. You don't move on from something like this.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with him that the apathy that
I have some
is
statistics for that, but please go on.
I just this is such a frustration for me. And this is one of the reasons why I've got to give small doses of this or get small doses of this
Mhm.
because I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how we got here and why we're not all doing what Joe is doing and running to make a difference. Joe's not going to be there and only enact his agenda. He really believes that change starts here and then we spread. And Joe, I apologize if I'm taking, if
Yeah.
I'm fibbing. I don't think I am, but it's just so frustrating to me that, you know, we see a problem wherever it is and are willing to turn our backs on it and not mobilize.
Yeah.
Not to speak for Joe, the first question in the prologue of the book, because I want to be honest, I have the physical copy and I also have the audiobook. The first question that Adam Schiff raises is, why should I? Why should anyone act to defend democratic norms at great personal and political cost?
Hmm.
And there's an old adage that comes to mind, and it's, well, they came for so and so, and I
Right.
did nothing, or I stayed
Yeah.
silent. They
Yeah.
came for so and so, and I stayed silent. And when they came for me, there was no one left to cry out. And if we fail to cry out, if we fail to say something or stand up or push back, then we are doomed to this path that has already been cast before us. Right. And so the fact that Joe has taken up the mantle, if you will, to defend the norms of society and perhaps better them. Right. I don't want to speak, because I
One of
am
my
not
least one of the things that all of the candidates are sort of facing, we had a meeting this weekend, but all the local candidates we were talking about is all of these questionnaires that we're filling out. Various organizations want to know where we stand on things,
Mm-hmm.
and they all start with the same question. It's literally the same question every in-person event that I've been to is, why are you running? And I hate that question. A, because it's self-evident, and B, because when you really get down to the truth, the truth is clearly people run because their egos are big enough to believe they can make a difference. That's really the fundamental truth. So, yeah, I hate that question, but it's a fair question. But
Yeah.
to me, it's self-evident. I want to be part of not a hero, not riding in on a, white horse or with a cape or any of that other stuff, but I would like to be part of the group of people that sits down and says, "Let's solve collective problems
Mm-hmm.
together." And that's really what back to Adam Schiff's question, why do all those things? Because you either believe in collectively working collectively to solve, societal problems, or solve common problems, or you don't. And if you don't, then you really don't have true principles. You just have hobbies.
It's interesting because anymore in politics, right? Whether it be in the Texas House, the Texas Senate, the U.S. House, the U.S. Senate, it is you try to herd cats because we the elected officials, not that I am one, by the way, but we the elected officials from these individual districts are more concerned about our constituents and getting reelected than we are about passing good public policy. And it's because we have fragmentized uh, and we we have become siloed, just like we are in our media trade followings and our media dealings. We've become siloed in our constituencies, and only those constituencies that get us elected, not the entire constituency that we're representing. And that's the failings of our current political officials, both on Republican and Democratic sides alike. And so I want to be clear, we're not failing because we are an old nation. We're not that, as you said, the old man shaking his fist. We are failing because we are refusing to talk across the fences we have built to keep those people out of our yards.
Takes the same amount of wood to build a bridge as it does to build a fence.
There it is.
I literally just made that up.
Oh, that's really good.
Copyright Joe Mays for Texas.
That needs to be on the t-shirt, so we're gonna buy.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And just for those listening, this is not a political podcast.
Mm-mm.
We do have a political podcast, Circle the Wagons. However, again, to David's point earlier, just a reminder, just a disclaimer, but a reminder that David mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, when you're talking about books, it's impossible, particularly when you're talking about nonfiction books about politics. Now, we haven't even delved into fiction books, novels, dystopians, all those other things that have political stories or allegories or anything else. But anyway, that's not a political podcast, but you kind of have to talk. If you're talking books, it's worthy of a conversation.
Okay, I can bring up a book. And I was going to bring up fiction books, but with the way this conversation's going, I felt like I should bring up the nonfiction book that with David's disappearing cup as he takes a drink.
Gosh.
I was taking a drink of coffee. That's all I was doing.
He's messing with you.
My favorite
He's
part is
messing with
when
me.
he takes
He
a drink,
moves
but he
it.
takes it real slow.
Yeah.
No, because he
and it
knows it annoys me.
fades in and out. And
Okay,
Okay,
so,
Diane,
Anyway,
you
back
have
to
the
Diane.
floor.
Back to Mama D.
so part of this going across the aisles and talking to each other, and the book that I wanted to mention is Erasing History, and it's by Jason Stanley. Just talking about the fact that, as I know in Texas, history books are new curriculum is being introduced that is taking out certain parts of history, I heard this and I don't have anything to back it up, but making slavery be more that the owners were teaching skills to the slaves for for nothing there, in exchange for some work, I guess. I don't know, but this idea of teaching history to eliminate what really happened.
Right. We
I
call
feel
those
like,
lies.
a lot of us grew up that
Yeah.
way. We grew up not learning the
Mhm.
correct history. Finally, we were starting to, as a nation,
Right.
look back and say, no, that wasn't taught correctly. Let's talk about what really happened.
Mhm.
And now, oh my gosh, the brakes are being put on that. And let's take that out. So
And I want to point out, Diane, to your comment that this is not the first time this has happened in Texas. We removed at one point anybody who was not considered to be a Christian founding father from the history textbooks,
mm,
and they had to be put back in with a slip page or a slip note, because one of the people that was removed, if you're not familiar, is Thomas Jefferson, because he altered the Bible to fit the narrative and take out all the stories. And so the Jefferson Bible actually sits at Monticello, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's at the Smithsonian, I forget which. But when they took Jefferson out of the Texas history books,
oh my
um,
gosh.
it made it real difficult for teachers to go in and teach, because they're like, oh, this is the founding. Now we're a country, because you can't talk about the Declaration of Independence. You can't talk about the Louisiana Purchase. You can't talk about, the third president of the United States. So you have all these monumental events in our history, and you can't talk about them because, oh, we took Jefferson out. The reason he was put back in was not because all of a sudden he found Jesus, not to be irreverent, but because it's realized that the original states' rights supporter, Thomas Jefferson, um, is key and fundamental to the argument of states' rights and being able to dictate curriculum, and so they added him back in.
Wow.
Um, Sadly, the reason Texas is so key when it comes to textbooks and the
Mhm.
curriculum that they're creating is because however Texas purchases textbooks, the majority of the nation tends to follow.
And Texas and California are the largest
Yeah.
District, with school districts.
consumers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
If I'm not mistaken, most districts buy 2 sets of textbooks for their students, or they did prior
Mm.
to the Chromebooks, because you always bought a set for home and you bought a set for school.
That was not my experience
No.
as a principal,
And
but
maybe it's
yeah.
different for elementary, but from what I understand from the high school perspective, according
Mm.
to one of my book reps who sold those
Mm.
textbooks to Texas for the high school students.
When
I
was
won't name
this?
them because I still have a relationship with them and I adore them.
When was that?
So
What time frame was that happening?
that was the 2015 era, if I'm not mistaken, 2010 era, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Boy, that's almost
So
like the bookseller saw an easy target there.
no, this is what Texas approved. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
but again, who's making the money and
Right.
where are those campaign funds coming from?
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to. I agree,
Mhm.
Cooper.
Cool. Hush, but
I,
it's okay.
you know what's interesting, Joe? I want to go back is that question you said about why are you running for office, or what made you choose to run? Um, that's a powerful question.
Sure.
And I know,
It's
I
a
mean, not
loaded
to,
question.
what's that?
It's a loaded question.
It's
Mhm.
100% a loaded question. And I think most people don't pay attention to what the true reason is.
Mm.
And so, as we pointed out, there are candidates running right now who are from the January 6th event. Why are they running? And so that's one of the questions we have to ask ourselves
Mhm.
Yeah.
is why?
Yeah, and I think that when you're looking at, um, candidates for any office, understanding their why, and frankly, probably the least effective way to find out why they're running, probably the least effective way to find that out is to ask them. But to gain an understanding, and to Diane's point, for example, January 15th was the deadline for all Texas candidates that are running in Texas. They had to file their financial forms. So you can go through and see where candidates are receiving their campaign contributions from. Most of my campaign contributions come from turning in aluminum cans, and you get 10 cents back. So that's pretty much where they're coming from. Um,
Adds up.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It does. That's how I funded gas in my car and as a student in Iowa. So
Oh,
yeah, I
yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Um,
I mean, you can look and gain some insight into the
Yeah.
why, by seeing where people's money is coming from, or at least get an indication. It's not necessarily a definitive answer.
Mhm.
I like to believe that it's possible to give people the opportunity to be forthright and candid, and to take them at their word. I do believe at some point many of them are going to prove you wrong. I listen with my eyes. I like to listen to what people do, not listen to what people say. So yeah, anyway.
well, and so the reason I want to jump off that is because I have an assignment my students have to do in class, and they have to go find their local, state, federal representatives. Um, because a lot of the reasons we're struggling as voters is that we don't know who represents us.
Oh,
God bless Texas.
yeah.
And it's not just Texas. I
I
want to
know.
put that out
I
there.
know.
Um, and what's interesting is that they're going to go find these people, and they're like, okay, what do I do now? Well, great question. Are these people anything like you? And so I make them identify who they are or what they're about, the individual student, and then they have to go find out who their representatives and who they are and what they're about.
Yeah.
And then the second half of that assignment is they have to go find out. So your question of why are you running, or what made you decide to run? Who's helping you run? And so
Yeah.
they have to go review the campaign finance reports for these elected representatives so they can see where their money's coming from. And then they go look at their policies or the bills they've worked on to see, are those lining up with their donors, or are they lining up with their constituents who are voting? And so, as Adam Schiff talks about, we are failing not just because we don't talk to each other, but because we don't take civic responsibility as something to do. We take it as something we wave our hands at every 4 years or 2 years, but it's something that we're not actively engaged in. And he's not calling for you to be a member of a party or run for office. He's calling for you to be a self-sustaining contributor to this idea of democracy.
Do you agree with Schiff's contention? And what is the path out of that? He talks about,
Mm.
being at the edge of midnight. Have we crossed in? Is it too late? Do you agree with him, first of all? And then if so, what would someone do to avoid being sucked into that abyss?
By the way, if you've seen my North Texas Mean Green sweatshirt, it's not because I'm a faculty member there. It's because it was a great hoodie, and I'm not a hoodie person, so I wanted to stay warm. Um, I do agree with him. Um, we are failing ourselves as a nation. Um, is it too far, or have we gone over the precipice? No. Like with anything, we're in that correctable window. Part of it's going to be, can we break the laziness that we have gotten ourselves into, the rut, if you will? Because ultimately, we didn't it wasn't just an overnight experience that got us into this place, and it's not going to be an overnight experience to get us out of it either. So we have to be more engaged. right? And I think you are the lighthouse in the storm, because you're running for office. You're talking to different demographics of people. You're meeting people where they are. And a lot of our politicians now have gotten us used to the idea that they're not going to come home and talk to you.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not going to come to a town hall meeting or reach out to you via phone or answer your emails because, oh, I don't have to, because you're going to keep electing me.
One of the things that I don't, this is not about campaign or anything else, but one of the things that I'm doing is I'm going out and speaking. Education, public education is extremely important to me for a variety of reasons. But one of the things I'm doing is speaking with the school districts that are within this House district, speaking to the superintendents from those districts. And one of them, and I won't say which one, talked about an encounter that their students had with a sitting Texas State House of Representatives representative. And again, not going to say which one.
Mhm.
And they were talking about what their futures held. And this one student said, was going to go into business and, try and go out and make a lot of money, but I've decided I think I want to go into social work or something like that and make a
Mhm.
difference. A sitting member of the Texas State House of Representatives said, well, that'd be a waste. Choosing a professional path whose purpose is helping society is considered to be a waste by a sitting state
Because it doesn't pay
representative.
enough.
Yeah, because it's not going to make him the big money.
Yeah.
That is the most
Isn't that horrifying?
upsetting. Yes, because we need people to. Oh my gosh, I just don't even. I
So,
don't words.
so I'm going to speak not for Teresa, but I'm going to speak on behalf of the ideas I think are running through Teresa's mind. We care, as there are certain figures in office who care about someone so long as they are not in society. They care about them before they emerge into society. So we're more likely to care about an unborn child and set rules and regulations to protect that child than we are to provide rules, policies, and safety nets for those that are already in our society existing outside of the womb. And that's a sad reality.
And someone who
Social,
maybe needs some help.
right,
Right.
Just
right.
checking.
And again, this is not a political podcast. This is about a book.
No,
But these
it's
are
a
the
human
these are the
podcast.
social
Humans.
norms and
Yeah.
civic responsibility that Adam Schiff talks about. Is that if we don't continue to pay attention and continue to work, it's like a good marriage, it's like a good friendship. You have to put in the effort and you have to put in the time. Otherwise, it's just going to fall to hell. And so
Good
part of that
analogy. Mhm.
part of that means you have to be active, right? Whether
Mhm.
you're running for office, whether you're voting, whether you are campaigning, whether you are talking.
Talking.
And
Yes.
that's the key. Um,
Being
there's a
informed, that is a level of participation that's critical. Be informed, have informed
yes.
conversation. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and so one of the things he talks about is disinformation and the big lie. And so we have to realize that CNN or Fox News or OANN are not going to be the bastions of beliefs that we think they are, the knowledge. We have to find out all the talking points and put them together ourselves,
Mhm.
right? Edward R. Murrow is gone. Charles Kuralt, gone. Peter
Walter
Jennings,
Walter
gone.
Cronkite. Yeah.
Walter Cronkite, rest his soul, gone. It is now up to us to be the disseminator or distiller of information to find out what we need to know.
Well, and this is, let me throw this question out to the group to get some opinions. That switch happened when the news departments of networks were no longer considered to be their payment to the federal government for the use of the frequencies. That's why the news was set up. Part of the agreement to give the networks free access to the bandwidths that they use for their channels was that they had to provide 30 minutes of um, public information available every day. That's what the news was. In I want to say 73, but please don't hold me to that. There was a switch made and they were no longer required to do that. And the news departments became cost centers. They were profit centers for the networks. And since from that point forward, they've been treated as money makers or money losers. And that's when people get fired and so on and so forth. Having said that, getting back to the books and back to the Adam Schiff book, has the same thing happened in publishing? Where the books that are being published, are they being published because they're the most salacious and the most sensational, or because they're truly the most informative books on a particular topic? In the nonfiction realm, obviously.
I have to be careful here, right? I don't want to step on anyone's toes. This is not my area of expertise. But remember, we have always had the ability to self-publish and textbooks, books. So it's a little bit different than media, because as long as you have the available funds and access to a publisher or press, you can publish your book, your journal, whatever, and it doesn't have to be accurate.
Isn't
Right?
that what we're doing? We're putting information out over a medium.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Go ahead, Teresa.
But I think that's where being a critical consumer comes in. You have got to read multiple sources. If you're talking about, Joe, a nonfiction book, we can't take anything as just word. That is wrong. It's not the way we should operate. It's not the way we should conduct ourselves personally, business-wise, anything, because it is so important to read opposing or read views that are different from ours and the same as ours, and then find out really what the truth is, whatever, truth that enigmatic thing.
Yeah.
But I think critically analyzing everything and not just blindly believing is so important.
Yeah. Diane, were you going to say something? Diane, were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, sorry.
No.
And I mean, Joe, you asked the question, but I think this would be where you and Diane come into play more so when it comes to the books. And in part because to me, almost like a computer, as soon as it's made, it's obsolete. Is that the same way with books sometimes? Is that as soon as they're pressed and sent out for consumption, are they already obsolete? Right? Especially if you're talking in the nonfiction world. But I don't know.
Yeah, some are. I can think of a couple of biographies that came out. Will Smith had a big release of his biography. We had it, boy, front and center, and then he slapped the guy.
Slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars.
Chris Rock at the Oscars, and that book sat
right there.
Of course it did.
Right there, until I could finally send it back to the publisher. Yeah. When I think of it's books like that come out from somebody's point of view, and then history changes, our life goes on, and we find out, yeah, you're full of crap. Another one, I probably shouldn't speak out about him.
Now I just want to know.
I know, now I'm going to have to. James Patterson. James Patterson is a friend to independent bookstores. He gives out grants every year to employees of independent bookstores, and you apply for them. Some of our employees have gotten the grants. It's beautiful, beautiful thing that he does. But he put out his autobiography, and then he got on a talk show and said how white male authors were so struggling to get published because of all this DEI type stuff. I don't know exactly. I'm totally paraphrasing what he said, but that was the gist of what he said.
Basically saying, yeah, it's tough. It's a tough for a white male author to get published.
Yeah. And his autobiography sat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure.
Interesting. I've pulled up here. We were talking about memoirs and are they sensational or are they truthful and what credibility does the publisher have? Nobody's Girl, the memoir from Virginia Roberts Guffrey, and I don't know if that's proper pronunciation of her name. But I was pulling that up as an example. And right above it was James Patterson's Filthy Rich, which is the Jeffrey Epstein story, written by the James Patterson group, which is him and John Connolly and somebody else, Tim Malloy wrote that book. But so anyway, Patterson and
Yeah.
but
Well,
yeah,
people who don't know, Nobody's Girl is about is written by or
it was written
about
by the victim.
And later she committed suicide before the
committed
book came
suicide
out.
by hanging.
I was actually talking to somebody about that book last week.
Yeah.
Probably a book club.
Nope.
Fight Club?
Fight Club,
Did you
yes.
say Fight Club?
Broke the rule. And the last thing I want to say is nobody's perfect, right? Adam Schiff is not perfect. I'm not perfect. We're not perfect. But the one thing that we can always do better is participate and vote. We're coming up on a midterm election. This is going to be a huge midterm. And the reason I'm so concerned about this, I'm talking to my students about it already, just to put it in context. And I'm going to give you the last 4 cycles of midterm election voter turnout. And these are voter eligible numbers. So that means people who are eligible based on they're not felons, they're not currently incarcerated, or they've had their voting rights restored. And they're of sound mind, meaning they're not under guardianship or control of somebody else. Now, not every state reports those numbers, but we have a pretty good ballpark. This is from Professor McDonald at University of Florida Department of Political Science. In 2010, of the voting eligible population turnout for a midterm election across the nation, 41% was our turnout number. In 2014, so the midway through Barack Obama's last term of office, the midterm point turnout was 36.7% of voters that were eligible to participate.
Wow.
Right. So we're not hitting 50% of voter eligible turnout based on the data that we have. 2018, which was a seminal year because that's when we saw the first flashback against Donald Trump's administration when he was elected in 2016, we hit 50% turnout. And that's, again, a voter eligible. And then lastly, in 2022, we don't have 2024 numbers hard yet because it's so recent. But in 2022, 46% turnout of voter eligible in the midterm election of Joe Biden's one administration. And so what this tells us is that midterms, number one, aren't as sexy, but number two, that we're not as engaged as we should be. And this is going to be a huge election. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, Libertarian, hippie, whatever, this is an election that we need to be paying attention to.
The midterm.
Midterm
How about
election.
just a person who cares? You
Right,
know, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Then I'm a hippie. I just care. You know, we should all care. We should all care about what the future is going to look like for everybody, you know? And I think it gets so divisive. I apologize for hijacking this. I get so frustrated. We're just people, you know? And we don't always have to have a dividing line between us. And that's so frustrating to me when we can't even have dialogue because someone has a label. It's not okay. We're still just fundamentally people. Let's be
Yeah.
nice to each other. Let's be respectful. My goodness. Ugh.
Go ahead, Dan.
Gosh.
I just I I agree with you, Teresa, but I have a hard time being nice to someone who I know is a racist now.
Oh,
And I can't.
I hear you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm talking party lines, Diane. I'm not talking about a person who, quite frankly, is reprehensible. I have a hard time as well, you
Yeah.
know, but I think we need to stop saying, well, I am this as far as party goes. And how about let's solve this poop show and let's figure out how we can move forward from here.
I think we all need to start seeing it as a poop show. I don't
It
think
is.
everybody is.
Yeah.
That's
It's
the issue.
it is a burning one.
Oh,
And-
I know. I agree.
And the other piece of that is some of this is generational. Y'all are younger than Diane and I, but when we look at my son in Alaska, who's 40, how old's Brady? He'll be 44 in February. My oldest son, well, that's an anomaly, but anyway, he's in his 40s. Charlie's 29. He'll be 30 in June. They view the world very differently than we do. And they don't have the level of confidence, and this is I'm painting with somewhat of a broad brush, but most of the feedback that I've gotten from people of that age is they don't have the same level of confidence in the process of voting and running and speaking out and protesting and demonstrating. They don't have the same level of confidence that that's going to make a difference. They see a rigged game that's not going to be not rigged. It's rigged by people who have money and whose interests are in protecting that money, and they will do everything that they can. And that frankly, they have resources at their disposal that most people don't. Therefore, anybody that fights against them is going to lose because they got money. So that's kind of the other piece of this is when we're talking about, and Charlie started a nonfiction book club, and we read a lot of um, uh, uh, nonfiction books, political books that frankly were a little depressing. We had a very depressing period. Um, so he's still reading, he's still looking, he's still trying to become
And
informed,
voting.
and voting and shifting his major and all those other things. But it's still, when we're having these conversations, I guess where I'm going with that is it's important to understand that not everybody is coming from the same place we are. And say,
Absolutely.
get out and vote. You got to get out and vote. They're like, why? My vote doesn't matter. It doesn't, people are going to say whatever the ones who have the most money are the ones getting elected. That's really all that matters. So, so it's, there's a level of disillusionment, I think that's, yeah.
But I think what's important to realize is there have been studies conducted, and I can't grab any specific article or book that show while money is a powerful tool to open the doors, money can't vote. It still comes down to the one person, one vote idea of American democracy, but too often we're getting tuned out because we see the Elon Musk, not to pick on his $280 million windfall for elected officials, but those kinds of individuals do have a substantial impact on elections unless we participate, right? And then I talk to my students about this as well. I have a colleague who works for a foundation, and his job is to give out money to political candidates. And so he spends money from a foundation of a well-to-do individual. There used to be two, one passed away, a billionaire, and he determines who is going to be a viable candidate to support that individual's foundation's policies and practices. And that's how he awards money.
Mm-hmm.
And so realizing that that person's not always successful is key when it comes to this idea that it doesn't matter what we do, we're going to lose anyway, because we need people out there. Otherwise,
For sure.
Charlie's not wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So,
I believe that. I believe that
right.
that's how a difference can be made. Um, yeah, it's just how then can we uh, demonstrate to those who are questioning it? And this is where I think, again, going circling back to books that discuss this in a way that is meaningful to those who are frankly cynical and discouraged, can make a huge
Would you
difference.
say the Adam Schiff book would be a good book for people to read that are discouraged? Or is it just more discouraging?
I think if you look at the surface level,
Mm-hmm.
it's discouraging. But if you look at the words that Adam, my buddy Adam is writing on the page, I think you realize that it is always darkest before the light. And
Yeah.
so, my great grandmother used to tell me, because we would get up early in the morning. She's like, I'm like, it's so dark. And she's like, the sun's about to rise. And so I think that's important to realize, is that i- it's dark now, or it feels dark. And a lot of my students have told me this. They don't know what to do, and they feel really alone, or they feel really afraid.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Sure. Um, but you have to realize that by telling someone that you're afraid, you've taken the first step to make yourself unafraid. You've taken the first step to get informed. And so you read the book, even as dark as it feels, so that you can be prepared and know what to do, because your time is coming, whether it's going to be as someone who runs for office, or cast a ballot, or donates $1, or puts a sign in their yard.
Right.
Your time is coming, and you are needed in this struggle for democracy.
Yeah, and I love
I love
the
that.
title of Beto O'Rourke's book, "We've
Yeah.
Got to Try," and then the subtitle of that is "How the Fight for Voting Rights Makes Everything Else Possible."
Yep.
And, again, I think that does now Beto is, an eternal optimist and a big believer in the political process, but I think that in that book, he focuses specifically on how to make the voices heard and how to make sure that the process exists so that the voices can be heard. And that's what I think there's a lot of discouragement about now is people are like, it doesn't matter what I vote. It's not going to count. It's not going to make a difference. And so again, yeah, I think it's up to us that have been a part of society getting to the point that it is now. I think it's up to us to say, okay, well, let us show you that it can work.
It's interesting as you're saying this. Yeah, Beto is a weird dude. Like,
Mhm.
I super want to meet him, because I just remember his concession speech when he walked out on that stage and he looked out at his audience on CNN live, right? So I go into class the next day. My students are like, "Did you watch that?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I watched that." And the first thing he says is, he comes out there, he's got the microphone, he looks like he's just rolled out of bed, in college, and says, "I'm so fucking proud of you." Like nothing else, right? And CNN's like, "Well, there you have it, folks."
Yeah.
Because he's right. In a state like Texas, a one-party dominant state, and he almost beat an incumbent Republican
Mm-hmm.
as a Democratic candidate with no national support. Like, that's something.
My favorite Beto story involves him. He was doing a book tour and we facilitated and set up the events and had an event at the bookstore. And my son Brady happened to be visiting during that time. And while there were three different events and we were running around all day. And Brady was going to meet us at the last one after he played tennis with Kayla Olson's husband, as a matter of fact. Anyway, but he had gone out while he was waiting and had a burger and had a couple of cocktails, along the way. Anyway, we get to the evening, the event at the store, and Beto's there, and Brady approached him and said, "Look, I disagree with everything you stand for, but I so greatly respect and admire your effectiveness in communicating your ideas.
Yep.
And, at first it was like, oh, dear God, somebody get Brady away from
Brady away
Beto.
from Beto.
And if he had said it once, it would have been cool. But anyway, and I love Brady. I'm not picking on Brady. But my point is, as with time and distance, what a powerful commentary. What a powerful comment to make to someone. He says, I fundamentally disagree with pretty much everything you stand for, but I so admire and respect your ability to communicate your ideas so effectively. That is a great place to start a conversation.
Absolutely, positively.
Yeah. So
You know,
communicate, speaking face to face, not
Mhm.
keyboard to keyboard.
Right.
it reminds me of Ronald Reagan when he went, and I'm not a Ronald Reagan fan or apologist for him, but when he went to Berlin and he said to Gorbachev, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down
Down
this
that
wall.
wall.
And it's like, well, now Gorbachev has to respond, right? But he starts the conversation, and that's the first step in all of this, and that's one of the things that Adam Schiff starts with and he ends with, right? Is you have to start the conversation wherever it is, and that's what we're missing in this world,
I like
Well,
that.
right? And that's what this.
and I think
this
that's a powerful message for a book on politics. If that's really sort of the takeaway, I think that's a really, really powerful message.
Well, and that's what this whole podcast is about, right? Whether you like the book, you don't like the book, whether you agree with it, this is Four Friends in a Book or a genre of books, right? And so let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And so that's the takeaway for not just today's episode, but also for all of them, right? And I'm a little disappointed in Diane. I'm not gonna lie. I thought somehow, some way, the Briar Club was gonna make a
Well,
reappearance.
Give her
if
to
we
well,
had
she's been
focused,
trying to get a word in
if
edgewise.
we had focused on fiction, I was going to say that the Briar Club focused on the McCarthy era and McCarthyism and what the
Yeah.
horrible things it brought about. So yes, as a fiction book, it does have a political leaning. So yes,
There you
I
go.
was going to, but there
Mine
you
was
have it.
fiction. Mine was fiction. It's okay.
Mine, I had
Yours was
several.
fiction?
Yeah.
Oh,
I had a smattering of them, some fiction, some nonfiction, some questionable. Many classics, Teresa, you'll be happy to hear. Um, but when you look at political books like 1984, where the story is allegorical, but it's very political. Now that's very specific
Mhm.
political story or allegory. But then when you get into books like Fahrenheit 451, excuse me,
Classic.
Parable of the Sower, which
should be
is,
classic.
yeah,
Will be.
excuse me,
Bless you.
Parable of the Sower,
Mhm.
which is again sort of a near future dystopian, those kinds of stories that are political in their premise, and then the story, of course, follows whatever arc the author takes it on. So the fiction books, are that you take a step back and say, "Ooh, is that fiction or not?"
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Mm-mm. Well, what's on the docket for next week? I
yeah,
think
who?
Diane,
Oh, I
it's
think
your
it's
turn, right?
me.
Yeah.
And it is, tell us about the first book or a book that you remember reading early on that you loved, that you just made you realize reading was fun and enjoyable.
Okay.
And then let us know a great book that you just read or that you are currently reading.
Okay.
Where you started and where you're at today.
Do they need to tie together?
No,
Okay.
nope. Don't need to tie together. Kind of to see where you started and where you headed. Where are you at now? What kind of book are you liking now from what you
Okay.
loved then? Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. I'm gonna have to think on that.
Yeah. That'll be a chewy conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also wanted to throw out something if people listening to this podcast enjoyed the political discussion, join us on Circle the Wagons, which is our political podcast. And you'll hear a lot more of this kind of talk.
Literally took the words out of my mouth,
Really?
man. Yeah, I was getting ready to say that exact same thing.
There you have it.
Also, I want to throw a huge shout out there because as we talk about Circle the Wagons, I believe they had their first sponsorship. Is that right?
From?
Not really.
The
That was
the
not
Hive
true.
Bakery.
Not really. That was Joe. I knew I was gonna be going down to Louisville the next day,
Oh.
and Louisville is, of course, right next to Flower Mound, so I knew I was gonna be right by Hive Bakery. So, no, unfortunately, that was a satire. No, what's the word I'm yeah, no.
Lie.
Yeah, it was a lie.
Aspirational.
I
Oh,
lied.
I was hoping they were providing snacks. I was like, that's the only reason I want to join now.
But I
know.
did say immediately that this episode is brought to you by Hive Bakery. That's not true. I did immediately say that's a lie. So I don't want Haley to think that we're riding their coattails. Haley from Hive, not Haley, Charlie's Haley. Charlie's fiance Haley. No, I wish. We love, and the next day I went down there and had my meeting, and then went to Hive Bakery and loaded up with a box full of stuff and brought them home, and yeah.
If you haven't been to Hive Bakery, I'm sorry for your life.
Oh.
I brought home a bucket of their chocolate mousse at Thanksgiving, was it, my love?
Christmas. I think.
I don't remember.
I don't
And
either.
I
Maybe
think
it
there
was
may have been
Thanksgiving.
spoons involved. We just ate chocolate mousse right out of the bucket.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
It
Wait.
was
The
ridiculous.
first time Diane and I went, we got among other things, it was Charlie's fiance Haley's birthday. She's our Haley. It was her birthday, so we got her some cookies from Hive, but we got a brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tart, and the Pop-Tarts
It's ridiculous.
that they make
It
are just
is.
enormous.
Yeah.
And
The size of your head.
Diane and I split one, and it was absolutely transformative. I've yet
Oh.
to be back when they had them. They don't make the same things every day. That's the cool thing about them. So one of these days I'm going to synchronize, and on Circle the Wagons, Josh informed me, Josh Hatfield, the outspoken Lamanite, who's one of the members of the Circle the Wagons crew, told me that he lives like 2 minutes away from Hive Bakery. And I said, man, you should not have told me that, because if I see that they post what they have in the store, in the bakery every day. And if I see that they have the brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tarts, I'm going to have to tell Josh, Brock, go down, pick me up a couple.
Yeah.
I work down the
That sounds good.
breezeway from them twice a week.
I don't want to know this.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there have been times when I get so frustrated with my students that I'll just walk down there sometimes and just pick up $40 worth of snacks.
You're
because-
walking distance from Hive?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Literally, I walk down the breezeway. And so I'll come home and Teresa's like, oh, what did you bring? And we have someone in our family now who is gluten intolerant. And so I will bring home, all this crap for us. And then I'll bring home a gluten, and not that it's
Lemon
bad stuff. It's just,
blueberry gluten-free cupcake. Oh my God, they're
Magical.
good.
oh no, they have like a salted caramel gluten-free, like ridiculousness.
The gluten-free blueberry lemon cupcake
Yeah.
not only had blueberries on top of the frosting, opened it up, and it was blueberry filling inside this
Oh.
gluten-free lemon cupcake.
Yum.
Oh yeah.
I like lemon and blueberry together.
You can
Yeah.
tell it's time for dinner. We're hungry.
I know.
Right?
But
Changes.
Haley does magical things. If you haven't been to Hive Bakery, they're internationally renowned. She's been on a couple of different baking shows, which is incidentally also Charlie and Haley's one of their favorite genres is watching cooking shows. Especially there's a Korean one that they absolutely adore. Anyway,
I love cooking shows.
totally
you?
unrelated. But yeah, Haley's been on a couple of the baking shows, but she's a wizard. And if you don't follow her on social media, I strongly encourage it. If anything we said about politics today resonated with you, you're gonna love Haley.
Yeah.
Also, if you are interested in politics at all, please make sure you reach out and like and support Joe Mays for Texas. He's running the 106th House District out of the North Texas area. Aubrey, Pilot Point, Little Elm, the
Sanger.
380 Corridor,
Sanger,
Sanger.
Frisco,
You don't have to
Colony.
supporting, with a vote. Just make sure you reach out so you can find out what's happening in your district. And whether it's your office or not, make sure you reach out to all your politicians, because the more engaged you are, the more effective our democracy is.
Yep.
And the last thing I want to say is that we've already failed once as a nation, because originally we were created as a republic. And as Benjamin Franklin said, we're a republic, ma'am, if we can keep it. And we didn't. Now we're a democracy. So long as we keep the engagement alive, democracy will stay in full effect. That's all I've got.
Let's work on that.
All
Yeah.
right. There we go. Well, next week we will go back into the Wayback Machine and talk about our first books, and then Back to
Yeah.
the Future and talk about our current books. So, as always, friends, it was lovely. David, I hope you get to feeling better, and yeah, we'll be in person one of these days.
Yeah.
Wow. So Teresa's going to see Six, the musical, and she just wanted you guys to know that.
I don't know why I have an alarm set for tonight. Oh, because I had a student meeting last week. That's right. I forgot to take my alarm off.
All right. Well, we love you. Thank you so
Love you
much.
guys.
Guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 This is the Patchouli Podcast Network.